Hi, I'm Andy Aledort, and today's lesson I'm going to be teaching you how to play the Stevie Ray Vaughan classic, Pride and Joy, which he recorded for his first album, Texas Flood. Stevie Ray generally played with the guitar tuned down 1/2 step, so let's tune up first. Here's the low E, and that's tuned to E flat. A string, down 1/2 step, A flat. D string, down 1/2 step to D flat. G string, down 1/2 step to G flat. B string down to B flat. And the high E string down to E flat. So when you strum the E chord, it actually sounds E flat. One of the things with Pride and Joy is the intro. It's a little deceptive exactly where Stevie comes in. So if you were counting off the song 1, 2, 3, 4, it's actually after the downbeat of the next bar. It's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. So that opening lick is played by sliding up the B string from the 3rd fret to the 5th fret while also picking the open high E string, and it's played as an upstroke. So after that initial slide up, then you just repeatedly pick with an upstroke. So regarding the count off, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. So that first sound is like the and of 1, and then the second pick would be 2. So it'd be like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 4. Okay, so one more time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. So we've got, so right before you move up to, you just hit the open low strings open. 1. So it's just sort of this banging into the open strings as a rhythmic sound to move back between the two licks. So it's just a percussive sound. So one more time. So this next bar, I have the 8th fret of the B string and the 7th fret of the high E string. Again, we're using all upstrokes picking. The first one is picked without bending, but then each one is bent slightly after that. Very subtle bend on the B string. Then, so what we got here is, in bar 4, on B2, we're bending the 2nd fret of the G string up a whole step, and then while it's still bent, you pick it and release. So after you come back down, you pick the open G and B string, land on 2nd fret of the D, then the open G and B string again, followed by the open low E, and that's where the band has come in. So one more time, the whole intro put together. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. So one of the coolest things about Pride and Joy, and a question everybody asks in trying to learn how to play the song, is how Stevie does that great shuffle rhythm guitar part that runs through the tune. And the cool thing about it is it's a combination of playing single notes on the low strings, primarily on the E string and the A string, combined with these open string accents that come as upstrokes. The other thing is Stevie would strum across all the strings while playing the part. So he would mute some strings while playing on the low strings. He'd mute the higher strings and then just pick the higher strings. So you get this sound of hitting all the strings and this very aggressive rhythmic sound with the pick hand while you hear the definition of the notes. And it takes some practice to get that together. So first I'll play it with the backing track and then I'll show you how to do it. So after that, and this open low E is the downbeat. So you can see on the upstrokes, you have the sound of the open strings, and on the downstrokes, you have these bass notes. The one little tricky part is that after the initial, right here, Stevie plays another note. So if you just looked at the low string, like that, 3rd fret, 4th fret, 2nd fret, 4th fret. But in between that bass riff come the upstrokes on the open strings. So right here, you can do it as a hammer-on. It doesn't sound great when you do it slow, but or you can try to hit it as well on that upstroke. So you can see I come all the way across. So I'm raking across all the strings. So those upstrokes, you know, it sounds like open strings or slightly muted strings. One or the other, it's fine. The point of it is that you have to strum aggressively to get the proper drive in the song. When we get to the A chord, you play the same type of figure. We just moved it over to the A and the D string. Open A string, 3rd fret, 4th fret, 2nd fret, 4th fret, with the open string accents on the upstrokes in between. Right here. This is a cool way to get back to the E chord. On the upstroke, it's the top 3 strings open. Downstroke, you bar across the top 3 at the 2nd fret. And then go into a full E chord. So upstroke on the low string, downstroke across the whole chords. So one more time, that A. Back to the E riff. And then right here, on the 5 chord, when the bass goes, that whole last 4 bars of the 12-bar blues progression, Stevie plays a little solo. So 3 times we're going to slide up from the 2nd fret to the 4th fret on the G string to the 3rd fret on the B. then you pull back. Pick the open A, hammer down, second fret of the A, and then pick the note again. That's a pull off. And then over the A chord. You're going to go up chromatically, open, first fret, second fret, back to the open D, straight down the E blues scale. But when you get to that open A, you're going to go back to first fret, pull off, and then third fret on the sixth string. We wrap up with two E's, the high E to the low E. And then the very end of this intro, slide up again, second to fourth fret on the G string, bring in the third fret of the B, and then all as upstrokes. Another expressive slide back from fourth to second on the G. And that's your little walk-up riff, the little 5 chord at the end of the progression, the turnaround. And then Stevie starts right away just picking those upstrokes on the open strings that he's going to use for the verse section. All right, through the verse section, for the most part, Stevie just plays these upstrokes on the upbeats. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3. So after they're picked, I'm bringing my fret hand down to block the strings so they don't sound. So they just sound very percussively on those upbeats only. So now I'll play the rhythm part along with the backing track, and then I'll show you how you play it. So through the first bar, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and then into the second bar, 1 and 2 and 3. So it beats 3 and 4 in bar 2 of the verse section of the song. So I'm bending second fret of the G up a whole step, release, pull off, and then land on the second fret of the G string. And then I actually play the top part of a regular E chord by bringing my index finger in first fret of the G string. And then I go back to the same staccato upstrokes on the top 2 strings or top 3 strings. And then for the A chord, he actually very briefly hits the A in bar 4. So you got, if we're counting through from the beginning, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1. So right at the end of bar 4 there. Now, it makes more sense to stay on the A once you're on A. But Stevie just continues to do that percussive sound through bars, the beginning of bar 5, where the A chord comes in. So what I've got here is, for the A chord, I'm just barring across the second fret of the D, G, and B string. And I also have the third fret of the high A string for your standard variety A7 chord. And there's a very slight bend on that accent. So just push that high E string up a hair. Go back to the... And this is something you don't have to do. It's coming off the 1 chord going into the 5 chord in bar 9 of the progression. So I'm just playing like a regular E chord, pulling off. And then we're going to play that same kind of riff over B. So 2nd fret, 5th, 6th, 4th fret of the D, 6th fret. Back to the A riff. And then here, the last 2 bars. And this is kind of neat. Stevie goes. So once you get up to the 4th fret on the G string, and I've got the 3rd fret on the B string, I'm doing a down pick, an up pick on the high E string, but then I'm going to drag the pick across the top 3 strings in a reverse rake. So in slow motion, that's what it would sound like. So you want to hear the as a clearly defined thing, but and that little walk up again at the end. All right, the second verse is played essentially the same way with the accent on those upstrokes. 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. Stuff like that. It's slightly different, so I'm going to play along with the track now, and then I'll show you what he does. All right, in the second verse, instead of just doing the on the open strings, it sounds a little like he's fretting the top part of the E chord. So you can do that instead. They're so similar, but if you listen closely, you can hear the G sharp in there. And the difference here is he just keeps doing that through almost the entire first 4 bars. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. So at the end there, do 3rd fret, 4th fret to get into the A chord, but he goes right to. So it's funny, it almost sounds like it could be a mistake because he's playing this early and he goes back to the E early. Mistake or not, it sounds great. It's a cool way to do it. And then he changes the riff here in bar 8. So you're going back and forth. You got your E chord. Lay that ring finger down across the D, G, and B string. You got downstroke and upstroke on the low E string, and then a downstroke. So those upstrokes you can do them on the low E string as a way to propel the rhythm. And it's also nice to alternate between the low sound and then the higher sound for the accents. And go back and forth like that. If you want, you can start by hitting a full B5 bar chord. before going into the bass riff. This is kind of neat here. So at the end of bar 10, that's bar 10 of the second verse. 5th fret of the D string, pull off to the open string, to the 2nd fret of the D. And while you're holding that note and allowing it to ring, you pick the open low E. Back to that same. And that's back to the 5 chord, and then we're into the break. Following the second verse, we've got the stop chorus, where the band stops together, and then they stop for 3 beats, 1, 2, 3, and then there's a little fill. So it's like 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 2, 3, and... All right, so those first 3 bars, bar 3 there. Bar 3 is mostly just that hit, 2, 3, and. So we're sliding up, 2nd to 4th fret on the G string with the middle finger, index finger, 3rd fret of the B. And then you're going to do all upstroke in those 8th note triplets. 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3 triplet, 4 triplet. Slide down at the end to the A5 chord. This is bar 5 of that break section, 3rd verse. One more time. So right there, I'm hitting that A7 chord. That's in bar 6. Another one of those. And then there's a little single note riff. So I'm bending G string up, whole step, and then picking the B string and the high string. One more time. Bend up, open, open. 3rd fret of the B, pull off. And then you're going to bend the 2nd fret of the G. And release. Bend, release, pull off. Down to 2nd fret of the D. So that's kind of going back and forth between the open low E and the top part of an E chord. So we're going to do a slight bend on that 3rd fret of the B string, the D note. There's a trill between the open G and the 1st fret. So quickly hammer on and off. Now right here on this B chord, kind of a syncopated strum. You pick the low part of the chord, the middle of the chord, and then the high part of the chord. And then over the A chord here in bar 10 of that section, another riff. And there's another one of those. And that leads into the first guitar solo. All right, the solo begins with more of these two-note figures on the G and the B string that are all picked with upstrokes. And so Stevie slides to the 13th fret on the G string and the 12th fret on the B string. 1, 2, 3. So on each beat, on the downbeat of each beat, is that slide up from 2 frets below. 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a. You got to make sure you get that open high E in there for the right sound. So in bar 2, he switches to going up to the 16th and the 15th frets. Bar 3 back to 13th and 12th. So once again from the beginning, 1, 2, 3. Back. And then he plays. So you're going to start off, you have your index finger barred across the top 2 at the 12th fret. Bend the 14th fret G up a whole step. So 3 times these little half step bends on the B string, 15th fret. So in bar 5, one more time. Start with that little subtle bend, 15th fret of the high. Index, index. And that's the 14th fret, bend up. 14th fret, 12, 12 to 15 on the B. And one thing to think about is what fingers to use. You can keep your slanted thing and just use index, middle, and ring. Sometimes Stevie would use the pinky and then use the middle. Go pinky middle, which might seem unusual. Or go pinky ring. And then, so repeatedly bending. So that's 12th fret of the G to 14, 12, 14. So after we there's a quick slide down the G from the 14th to the 2nd fret. But when you get down to the 2nd fret, you're going to bend the string like that. Walk up from the low. So we come 3rd fret of the low E, open A, 2nd fret, 1st fret, 2nd fret. And this is kind of, you're playing a B7 chord, 2nd fret, 1st fret, 2nd fret, open, 2nd fret. And I'm picking the strings, kind of going from the low to the middle to the high in a syncopated manner. So you slide up to the 17th fret, slide down. So like that. Open 2 top strings, 3rd fret open, 3rd fret of the G and B. Back to the 2nd fret. And then this figure again. But here, he plays a C9, 3rd fret, 2nd, 3rd, 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 bar with the ring finger, down to B9. And then jumps back into the intro figure to kick off the next part of the solo.